Han watched the eerie scenes unfolding inside the fortresses, secretly startled. These plain-looking fortresses were apparently places where the Nine Nether clan refined some kind of puppet. They used Grey Realm creatures and even members of other Grey Realm races as the materials. Such acts could never be made public. No wonder the place was guarded so tightly. The Nine Nether clan also seemed to have mastered this bizarre puppet refining method to an extraordinary degree, enough to carry it out on a massive scale. Though true members of the Nine Nether clan were few, they were formidable in their own right. On one hand, they could control Nether slaves. On the other, they could manufacture these puppets in great numbers. It was no surprise they had become the ruling clan of the Nine Nether region. After looking for a while longer, Han immediately withdrew his spiritual sense and returned it to the fortress with the water pool. From there he extended it in another direction and soon reached a gigantic fortress. This place was filled with prisons of all different heights, packed densely together like a honeycomb. Some of the cells held all kinds of Grey Realm demon beasts. The others held members of the various Grey Realm races. They were completely naked, their eyes dull and vacant. Because the cells had deliberately been built extremely low, they could only lie prone on the ground like beasts. These were precisely the raw materials for refining puppets. There were many of them, numbering in the thousands. Among them were no lack of powerful beings at the true immortal stage, and even some at the golden immortal stage. However, the cells holding those powerful beings had been specially made. They were exceptionally sturdy and covered with all kinds of restrictions, leaving no chance for escape. Han had already spent quite some time probing the interior of the fortresses, so he soon withdrew his spiritual sense. Shirchuankong, Husan, and the others naturally knew nothing of what Han had just seen. By now they had rested enough, and the group continued onward. The five of them kept moving carefully under concealment. Following the route on the map, they soon reached the northwestern boundary of the 100 Hordes district. Not far away, a huge corner tower hung from the city wall, exactly as depicted on the map. A faint black light shimmered over the tower. It was covered by a layer of restrictions, and many armored Nether slaves stood nearby, seemingly guarding the area. Han and the others hid in a concealed spot and looked toward the wall ahead. Once they reached this place, all five of them looked slightly relieved. The hardest part was already behind them. Next, they only had to use the same method as before and pass through this wall. Fellow Taoist, sure, I'll have to trouble you again to use your spatial teleportation technique and take us across, Han said to Shirchuankong after withdrawing his gaze. No problem. But Brother Hu, I'll need you to cast your spell and bring us close to the wall, Shirchuankong said with a nod, turning to Husan. Leave it to me, Husan said at once. With a flick of his wrist, the round crystal ball appeared in his palm. He began chanting under his breath, then formed a hand seal and pointed at the crystal ball. A layer of 7-colored crystalline light immediately bloomed from it, enveloping all five of them. After the 7-colored light flickered slightly, Han and the others vanished without a trace. Husan waved his hand, and the group of five moved forward, soon arriving at the base of the city wall. Shirchuankong rapidly formed hand seals while flipping his hand to take out formation plates one after another. He arranged them on the ground with great speed, and before long, he had once again set up a teleportation formation. He raised a hand and waved. A streak of silver light fell into the formation, and the teleportation array immediately lit up. At that moment, Emoguang waved both hands. Waves of black smoke like baleful chi surged out, enveloping the teleportation formation and sealing away all fluctuations of aura. Yet after the formation lit up, the group's figures merely swayed slightly. The next moment they returned to normal and did not disappear. Seeing this, Han and the others all changed expression. Their gazes turned toward Shirchuankong. Shirchuankong's face also turned somewhat pale. Then he seemed to realize something. He looked toward the city wall, his expression sinking. Brother Shir, what happened? Husan asked while continuing to activate the crystal ball to hide everyone's traces. Back first. Shirchuankong did not explain. He waved his hand and collected the formation flags, plates, and other items on the ground, then led the way back toward their previous hiding place. The others exchanged glances and hurried after him, soon returning there. Fellow Taoist, sure, what happened just now? Why did the teleportation fail? Bailey Yen was the first to ask. Could it be that spatial restrictions have been added to the wall's restrictions? Han Li suddenly thought of a possibility and spoke. Fellow Taoist Li has also studied spatial teleportation arts? That's right. The restrictions on this section of the wall include a layer of spatial restriction. My teleportation technique can no longer pass through it, Shi Chuankong said, glancing at Han Li. The others' expressions turned grim. The Hundred Hordes district was completely surrounded by layers upon layers of restrictions. Other than Shi Chuankong's teleportation technique, there was no second method to enter the Raksha district below. We finally made it here after so much effort. Are we really going to fall short at the final step? Bailey Yen asked unwillingly. Not necessarily. We only need to stop the spatial restriction inside the wall, Shi Chuankong said slowly after a brief pause. Stop the spatial restriction? Easier said than done. We don't even know where the formation core of that spatial restriction is, Bailey Yen said with a frown. Since fellow Taoist sure seems so confident, I assume you already have some clue? Han Li said, looking at Shi Chuankong. At this, Bailey Yen, Hu-san, and the others all turned their gazes toward Shi Chuankong. I investigated just now and did discover some hints. The wall's restrictions are powerful, so the formation core must be nearby. It is either inside this corner tower or at the city gate, Shi Chuankong said, glancing toward the gate. In that case, we'll split into two groups. Brother Shi, fellow Taoist Li, and I will take one route, while fellow Taoist Mo and fellow Taoist Bailey take the other. We will separately infiltrate the gate and this corner tower to search for the core of the spatial restriction, Hu-san said. When it came to concealment and stealth, Hu-san and Mo Guang were the strongest among them. It was indeed appropriate for the two of them to split up. Everyone heard this and had no objections. Fellow Taoist Bailey and I should have no problem entering this corner tower. But if the three of you go to the gate, you may encounter the great encompassment being stationed here. Be extremely careful, Mo Guang said, glancing at Han Li and the others in warning. Don't worry. I've already made preparations. But you must also be cautious when entering this corner tower. Also, take this minor shift revolving disc. It can perform short-distance spatial transfers. Once either side finds the spatial restriction, we'll use it to regroup, Shi Chuankong said with a confident smile. He then took out an octagonal silver jade disc about a foot across and handed it to Mo Guang. As expected of someone from Guangyuan House. Your wealth is impressive. In that case, we won't be polite, Mo Guang said with a smile, accepting the jade disc without hesitation. Wait. Even if we find the formation core of the spatial restriction, once we damage it, others will definitely notice something wrong. That will expose the fact that someone has infiltrated the city and draw great encompassment beings from the Nine Nether region to search for us. I'm afraid we won't be able to hide from them, Han Li suddenly said. When the others heard this, they immediately realized the problem as well, and their expressions darkened. No matter. As long as we find the core of the spatial restriction, I have a way to deal with it, Shi Chuankong said again with a faint smile. Han Li looked at Shi Chuankong in surprise but said nothing. In that case, we'll leave it to fellow Taoist Shi, Hu-san and Mo Guang, and the others said after exchanging glances and nodding. They discussed a few more details for after they split up, then immediately moved out separately. Han Li's group of three crept toward the city gate. There were not many patrolling nether slaves near the wall, so they did not spend much time before silently arriving near the gate. Inside the enormous gate tunnel, two heavy gates were tightly shut. Above the gate stood a three-story black hall. On each side of the hall was a smaller corner tower, and the three structures were connected by a stone walkway. The walkway was packed with armored nether slaves holding weapons, patrolling back and forth. Below on both sides of the gate, nether slave soldiers also stood densely packed, leaving no gaps. The situation here was almost identical to the previous gate, with no difference at all. Han Li looked at the palace and corner towers above the wall, his expression solemn. This time was different from their earlier infiltration of the Taming Nether district. They had to enter a palace where a great encompassment being might be present. Though he had many methods at his disposal, even he could not help his palms from sweating. Brother Shi, are you truly able to avoid the detection of a great encompassment being? Husan had also put away his playful expression and asked Shi Chuankong. Back when he had stolen treasure from the shark tribe and been captured, the person who caught him had been a great encompassment being. From that experience, he had gained a deep understanding of how terrifying such beings were. I don't have absolute certainty, but I'd say 70 to 80%, Shi Chuankong said with a slight smile. He took 3 white talismans from his sleeve. Each talisman was 3 inches long and 2 fingers wide. Its surface was covered with extremely fine black markings that formed an incomparably complex pattern. Within the pattern, 2 ancient characters could faintly be seen. Heaven escape. Black and white light flickered over the talismans, yet they emitted not the slightest aura. Han Li and Husan probed them with spiritual sense, but could not detect them at all. Both were greatly shocked. These are mustard seed heaven-escaping immortal talismans refined by a great encompassment being of Guangyuan House. They are profoundly mysterious. As long as the great encompassment being is not investigating with full effort, these talismans should be enough to conceal us, Shi Chuankong said, handing 2 of the talismans to Han Li and Husan. Immortal talismans refined by a great encompassment being. Husan and Han Li were both startled. Fellow Taoists, sure, these talismans are far too precious. We cannot simply accept them for nothing. What should we exchange for them? Han Li did not reach out to take his talisman, but spoke instead. Fellow Taoist Li, what are you saying? If not for your help earlier, my bones would already be buried in the gray realm. What is a mere talisman compared to that? Right now, the most important thing is to break the spatial restriction here, enter the soul-cleansing district, and find the baleful washing pool, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. Fellow Taoist Li, don't be polite with him. I've known this fellow for a long time. His fortune is vast. A single hair from him is heavier than all of us. If he offers something, take it, Husan said bluntly as he accepted the talisman, then turned to Han Li. Fellow Taoist Li is a sincere gentleman. Do you think everyone is as thick-skinned as you? Shi Chuankong glared at Husan and snorted. Husan merely chuckled and did not take offense. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony, Han Li said with a nod, finally reaching out to accept the talisman. One more thing. Though this talisman is mysterious, it has a time limit. Can only last for half an hour. We must finish searching this place within that time, Shi Chuankong said. He then opened his mouth and swallowed the mustard seed heaven-escaping talisman. Black and white light rippled over his body, and then his entire figure slowly merged into the surrounding void, disappearing from sight. Seeing this, Han Li and Husan also swallowed their talismans. Black and white light flashed over their bodies, and their figures quickly vanished into the void as well. Because the 3 of them had used the same talismans, a subtle sense of connection existed between them. They would not be unable to see one another. Let's go. The 2 corner towers and the great hall in the middle may all contain the core formation of the spatial restriction. We'll search them one by one, Shi Chuankong said with a wave of his hand. The 3 of them shot forward and silently landed before the corner tower on the left side above the gate. Many armored nether slaves stood near the tower, but their cultivation levels were weak, so naturally they could not detect Han Li's group. The 3 flew into the tower and quickly searched everywhere. The interior was not large, and they soon finished examining it. Inside were several living quarters. They were empty at the moment, but judging from the items left behind, they should be the residences of several guard leaders stationed at the gate. They found no aura of a restriction core. Han Li and the others quickly flew back out. The other corner tower is probably the same. There's no need to waste time. Let's go to the Great Hall, Shi Chuankong transmitted. Han Li and Husan shared the same view. The 3 figures flickered and landed at the entrance of the Black Hall. Han Li looked at the hall before him, his pupils narrowing slightly. The light inside the hall was dim, like a terrifying demonic maw waiting to devour everything that entered. His brows lifted slightly as he realized this was likely a mental illusion caused by the pressure of the 9 nether great encompassment being who might be inside. After taking a deep breath, he immediately cast that stray thought from his mind. Let's go. Shi Chuankong also seemed to have experienced a brief moment of daze. At this point he recovered, spoke, and flew into the hall first. Han Li and Husan followed closely behind and entered. Inside was a cylindrical hall of enormous size. It was 40 to 50 zhang across and 4 to 5 zhang high. The walls and floor were pitch black. Several black crystals the size of human heads were embedded in the walls, flickering with eerie black light and giving the place a strange appearance. At the far end of the hall were 3 passages. 2 led to side halls on the left and right, while the third led upward, apparently to the second floor. Shi Chuankong made a gesture. The 3 of them did not immediately go up to the second floor, but split up to inspect the 2 side halls. Before long, the 3 returned and gathered before the passage leading upward. The 2 side halls were both storage rooms, filled with armor, weapons, and similar items. Clearly, they were not what they were looking for. It seems it should be above. A great encompassment being's perception is far sharper than we can predict. Be extremely careful, Shi Chuankong transmitted in a solemn voice. Han Li and Hu San both nodded gravely. The 3 then slowly stepped upward and soon reached the second floor hall. The second floor was similar to the first. It was also a round chamber, except that it had several thick stone pillars. A demon dragon relief coiled around each pillar, its head raised in a roaring posture. At the far end of the hall were also 3 passages, 2 leading to the side halls on the left and right, and 1 leading to the third floor. Spatial fluctuations. It's here. The moment Shi Chuankong stepped onto the second floor, he looked toward the side hall on the left, his eyes brightening. Han Li and Hu San also looked in that direction, joy appearing on their faces. But at that moment, a white shadow suddenly shot out from the passage to the third floor. It was a small furry white beast. The beast was only about a foot long. Its body was covered in smooth white fur, and it resembled a civet cat. Its eyes, however, were extremely large, taking up almost half its face, making it look quite strange. The white beast opened its mouth slightly and made a cooing sound as it darted around the second floor hall, seemingly playing by itself. Han Li's group of 3 was startled by the sudden appearance of the white beast. But when they saw it merely flying around and playing, their expressions eased. It's fine. Ignore it, Shi Chuankong transmitted, about to step toward the left side hall. But just then the white beast that had been playing suddenly stopped. Its 2 eyes turned toward Han Li's group. A wave of white ripples shot from its eyes and descended toward the 3 of them. Not good. Retreat. Shi Chuankong's expression changed. He grabbed Hu San beside him and shot backward toward the second floor passage. Han Li moved even faster than Shi Chuankong. The instant the white beast looked over, he had already swiftly retreated. Fortunately, the 3 of them had been standing near the passage and were able to shoot into it in an instant. But the white ripples did not stop. They immediately pursued them into the passage and continued sweeping down toward the 3. The 3 did not dare use immortal spiritual power, so their speed was limited. In the blink of an eye, the white ripples were about to catch up. Seeing this, Shi Chuankong grew anxious. He suddenly clenched his teeth and waved his other hand, grabbing Han Li's body while quickly chanting an incantation. With a rumble, a cold power of laws surged out of his body and poured into Han Li and Hu San. It sank into the mustard seed heaven-escaping talismans inside them. Mustard seed and Sumeru. Heaven-escape soul attachment. The talismans inside the 3 of them suddenly trembled and shattered, turning into a strange power that coursed through their bodies. Han Li and the others abruptly sank into the wall of the passage and disappeared. The instant their bodies entered the wall, the white ripples arrived, spreading through the entire passage and the nearby walls. Yet nothing unusual occurred. The white beast shook its head. A trace of confusion flashed through its large eyes. Cloudball, what is it? A figure walked out from the third floor passage. It was a tall, thin, middle-aged man. His eyes were long and narrow, and his skin was deathly pale, without a trace of blood, making him look like a corpse freshly fished out of water. He was deeply unsettling. A dense, cold, baleful qi emanated from him. Anyone who saw him would instinctively tremble and want to keep far away. At that moment, a black figure flew up from the first floor passage. It was a nether slave in black robes. Waves of black qi rose from the man's robe and shrouded his body, making his figure appear indistinct, like a ghostly shadow. When the tall, thin man saw the black nether slave, a hint of understanding flashed through his eyes. Lord Guemu, the region lord, has sent an order, the newcomer said. He froze slightly at the scene before him, then immediately knelt and respectfully presented a black communication talisman with both hands. The white beast tilted its head and looked at the black-robed nether slave. The white ripples in its eyes flashed and disappeared. Then it turned into a white blur and darted into Guemu's arms. Guemu held the beast against his chest, stroking the soft fur on its head with one hand while accepting the communication talisman with the other. His spiritual sense sank into it. A strange light flashed in his eyes. He clenched his hand and crushed the talisman. Tell the region lord I understand. Arrangements have already been made at the puppet fortresses as well, Guemu said in a dry, unpleasant voice. The black-robed nether slave acknowledged him and immediately turned into a ghostly shadow, flying downward and vanishing in the blink of an eye. Guemu held the white beast and paced back and forth in the hall, seemingly considering something. Soon, however, he returned to the third floor. Only after his figure had disappeared for quite some time did Han Li's group of 3 fly out from the passage wall. They did not go back up to the second floor. Instead, they silently retreated to the first floor and hid inside one of the side halls. Only after reaching this place did the 3 of them breathe a sigh of relief. That was close. What kind of strange beast was that white civet? Could actually sense us. We were nearly discovered, Husan said, still shaken. It's probably some unusual beast from the Grey Realm. We were a little careless, Han Li said, flipping his hand and taking out a pill to swallow. The abilities of a great encompassment being truly aren't something we can imagine. Even a small beast by his side is that formidable, Shirchuan Kong sighed. All 3 looked solemn. They had originally thought that with the mustard seed heaven-escaping talismans, infiltrating the place and finding the spatial restriction core would not be too difficult. Who would have expected them to nearly be discovered before even seeing the core? Fellow Taoists, sure. What happened to the mustard seed heaven-escaping talismans inside us? They seem to have shattered, Han Li suddenly asked. The situation was urgent. I fully activated the power of the talismans and used the mustard seed soul attachment art. But because of that, the remaining duration of the talismans has been cut in half again. In about another quarter of an hour, they will lose effect, Shirchuan Kong said grimly. Han Li frowned at this. Only a quarter of an hour? Then we have to hurry. That white beast was already carried away by Guemu. Should we go up and try again? Husan asked anxiously. The difficulty of infiltrating this place was far beyond their expectations. If they lost the talismans, they would be unable to move an inch. No. It's too dangerous. Shirchuan Kong immediately rejected the idea. With Guemu there, going up would indeed be dangerous. It seems we can only lure him away, Han Li said slowly. Lure him away? Fellow Taoist Li, have you thought of a good plan? Shirchuan Kong asked, his face lighting up. Husan also looked over. The idea is actually simple. On our way here we passed that area of black fortresses. Those places are in fact puppet refining sites of the 9 Nether clan, and they hide certain shameful secrets. If we can find a way to create a disturbance inside, Guemu will most likely rush over. Once he leaves, things will be much easier for us, Han Li said in a deep voice. You examined those fortresses earlier? They're actually puppet refining sites? TSK. I'd really like to see what it looks like inside, Husan said, looking at Han Li in surprise. Your plan is feasible. However, we are now some distance from that area and time is tight. I'm afraid we won't make it there in time, Shirchuan Kong said after a moment of thought. It would be more suitable for fellow Taoist Mo Guang and fellow Taoist Bailey Yen to go. They are closer to that area. After the matter is done, they can use your minor shift revolving disc to teleport here, Han Li said, shaking his head. That's a good idea. I'll contact them now. Shirchuan Kong's eyes brightened and he was about to form a hand seal. There's no need to trouble you, fellow Taoist, sure. I'll do it. There are also some things about those puppet refining fortresses that I need to warn them about. We must ensure nothing goes wrong and leave no flaw for the 9 Nether region to notice, Han Li interrupted. Very well, Shirchuan Kong said, not insisting. Han Li closed his eyes and contacted Mo Guang through their mental connection, informing him of the situation on their side and telling him the plan. A puppet refining site? So that's what it is. No wonder the fortresses are so heavily guarded. Stirring up internal chaos won't be difficult. If I use the heavenly demon mind-disrupting art, I can definitely do it without anyone noticing and without leaving the slightest trace. The problem is that the restrictions there are sophisticated. Sneaking inside will be troublesome. Mo Guang replied through mental transmission. You need not worry about that. I have a secret art for breaking those restrictions. Han Li then passed on to Mo Guang the secret art Shi Qinghe had taught him. With this secret art, there will be no problem. Wait for my good news, Mo Guang replied. As soon as Guemu leaves the gate, I'll have Shi Chuankong bring you over. Be extremely careful. Do not let Guemu detect the slightest fluctuation of aura. Han Li warned solemnly once more. When teleporting, I will burn the source power of the Void Union clan to conceal the aura fluctuations. Not even a trace will leak out, Mo Guang promised, then cut off the transmission. Han Li opened his eyes and roughly relayed his conversation with Mo Guang to Shi Chuankong and Hu San. Good. We should also set something up here to ensure nothing goes wrong, Shi Chuankong said. He formed hand seals with both hands and waved. Four black talismans, each half a foot long, shot out from his sleeve. They were covered in black spirit patterns, and each bore one of the ancient words for east, west, south, and north. He pointed with a hand seal. In a flash, the four talismans stuck themselves to the four walls of the side hall. However, Shi Chuankong did not continue activating them. Instead, he walked to the entrance of the side hall and watched the movements outside. Han Li and Hu San also focused their attention on the surroundings, their nerves tense. Time passed bit by bit. Half a quarter of an hour quickly went by, yet outside everything remained calm. Why is there still no movement? Did something happen on Mo Guang's side? Hu San transmitted anxiously. The effect of the mustard seed heaven-escaping talismans was about to expire. Mo Guang and the others need time just to reach the puppet refining fortresses. Be patient a little longer, Han Li said with a slight frown. After weighing it in his heart, he decided not to send a message, lest he disturb Mo Guang. As soon as he finished speaking, a faint muffled sound came from the distance, as if something had exploded. Before the sound faded, another muffled explosion followed. Han Li's group of three froze for a moment, then joy appeared on their faces. In the distance, light flashed repeatedly around the puppet refining fortresses. A thick column of black smoke rose into the sky, and rumbling explosions carried over. When the nether slaves near the gate saw this, their faces changed drastically, and chaos broke out among them. It's the puppet refining fortresses. Quickly report to Lord Guemu, a nether slave leader shouted, about to rush into the great hall. But just then, the void outside the hall flashed, and Guemu's figure appeared out of thin air, the white civet-like beast in his arms. His face was full of shock and anger. The next moment he stomped his foot. His figure transformed into a long black rainbow, and shot toward the puppet refining fortresses. It worked. Shi Chuankong sensed what was happening outside and was overjoyed. His hands rapidly formed seals. The four talismans on the side hall's walls immediately released streams of black light, forming a black light screen inside the hall within a few breaths. Then he flipped his hand, and with a flash of silver light before him, another silver octagonal jade disc appeared, identical to the one he had given Mo Guang. Shi Chuankong opened his mouth and spat out a streak of silver light, which shot into the jade disc. The octagonal disc immediately shone brightly and spun rapidly. Countless silver runes surged out from it, forming a silver formation about a zhang in size. Figures flashed within the formation, and Mo Guang and Bailey Yan appeared. Both had looks of delight on their faces. But their expressions froze at once, and they looked around, searching for Han Li and the others. We used a secret art to hide our traces, Shi Chuankong said, raising his hand and sending two seals into their bodies. Mo Guang and Bailey Yan immediately faintly saw Han Li's group, and their expressions eased. How did it go? Han Li asked. Very smoothly. I used a heavenly demon secret art to drive a golden immortal level gray realm beast mad. It destroyed several major formations inside the puppet refining fortress, and I left no trace at all. I can guarantee that even a great encompassment being won't be able to find anything, Mo Guang said with some pride. That's good. There's no time to waste. We're going to the spatial restriction core. Shi Chuankong said. He waved his hand and put away the 2 silver jade discs, then formed seals to retrieve the 4 talismans from the walls. He immediately flew toward the 2nd floor. Han Li and the others followed at once. In an instant, the group flew to the 2nd floor and appeared before the entrance to the left side hall. The door to the side hall was tightly closed. Husan raised a hand and pushed it, but the door did not move. At the same time, light flashed over the door, and a layer of black radiance appeared. Damn it! There's another restriction. Husan's expression changed, and the others' faces also darkened sharply. No matter. Leave it to me. Han Li stepped forward. Purple light flared in his eyes, and his spiritual sense surged out to probe the black restriction. This black restriction was quite similar to the 9 nether great hidden profound restriction around the puppet refining fortresses. It was not impossible to break. Mo Guang waved both hands, spreading a black light barrier that covered Han Li and the door completely, preventing even the slightest aura from leaking out. Han Li's hands moved like wheels, forming seal after seal. Streaks of incantation light shot out and sank into the black restriction. The black restriction flickered rapidly. Countless black runes danced within it like boiling water. Purple light flashed wildly in his eyes as he took in every transformation of the black restriction. Found it! Joy flashed through Han Li's eyes. His hands abruptly formed a seal, and 2 rays of black light emerged from his palms and sank into the restriction. The black restriction flashed violently, then quickly dimmed. With a creak, the door opened. Shi Chuankong and the others were overjoyed and immediately shot inside the side hall. Han Li gently closed the stone door behind them. The black restriction on it quickly restored itself. Seeing this, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief, then turned to look inside the side hall. The side hall was quite spacious, larger than the 2 below. Inside, 8 stone platforms were arranged in a certain pattern. Each platform was filled with formation flags, formation plates, and similar items. They were the cores of various formation restrictions. Thick beams of light shot out from the stone platforms and sank into the ceiling of the side hall. Complex formation patterns were carved across the ceiling. At this moment, all of them were flashing rapidly, transmitting the light rising from the stone platforms outward. Shi Chuankong and the others stood beside the platform deepest inside. The formation flags and plates on that formation were all silver white. A thick silver light pillar rose from it, emitting intense spatial fluctuations. This was precisely the spatial restriction. The 9 nether cities' defensive restrictions have actually reached 8 layers. Not a small improvement. Shi Qingho's voice sounded in Han Li's mind, seeming somewhat impressed. When I had questions for you earlier, you refused to respond no matter what. Why are you showing up now? Han Li's figure flickered as he flew to Shi Chuankong and the others, while coldly transmitting back. Shi Qingho chuckled and did not answer. When you taught me the 9 nether great hidden profound restriction earlier, did you already anticipate that we would need to create trouble at the puppet refining fortresses to lure Guemu away? Han Li's eyes flashed as he asked again. Shi Qingho let out another soft laugh, still giving no answer. I don't care why you have suddenly become interested in 9 nether city, but we are now in danger. Do not create additional complications. If we are discovered, all of us will be buried here. No one will escape. Han Li transmitted with narrowed eyes, his tone warning. Boy Li, there's no need to be so guarded against me. Our fates are tightly bound together now. I would never harm you, Shi Qingho sighed. You hide everything and refuse to speak plainly. How am I supposed to trust you? Han Li snorted coldly. You will know in time, Shi Qingho said with a soft laugh. His voice then sank into silence again. Han Li frowned slightly, secretly clenching his fist. After quietly letting out a breath and calming himself, he looked toward the stone platform before him. Countless silver patterns crisscrossed the platform, forming an extremely complex formation. Silver formation flags were planted at the nodes, along with fist-sized silver-white crystals. There were 40 to 50 of them in total. These silver crystals resembled spirit stones, but strange spiral patterns were carved over their surfaces. They emitted waves of bright silver light and spatial fluctuations. Silver womb stones, Han Li murmured inwardly, recognizing the origin of the silver crystals. This crystal was a spiritual material containing spatial power. Even in the true Immortal Realm, it was a rare and precious material. He had not expected the Grey Realm to possess it as well. Shi Chuankong stood beside the stone platform and waved his hand. Silver light flashed in his palm, and a silver jade bottle appeared. His expression turned serious. He rapidly chanted an incantation, then formed a seal and flicked his finger. The jade bottle trembled slightly, and a fist-sized mass of silver liquid shot out. He waved a hand seal, and the silver liquid immediately split into dozens of droplets, each falling onto one of the silver womb stones before sinking into it. A layer of silver fluorescence instantly covered the stones. The silver light they emitted suddenly froze, as if the spatial power inside had been sealed in ice. The soaring silver pillar of light vanished in an instant. It's done. Everyone come quickly. There's no time. Shi Chuankong was overjoyed and immediately began forming hand seals again. Streaks of silver light flew from his hands and landed on the surrounding ground. Within a few breaths, they formed a silver formation. Han Li and the others immediately walked over and stood inside the formation. Mo Guang waved both hands, releasing rolling black qi that swallowed the silver formation. Silver light flashed. Everyone's figures swayed sharply and vanished in an instant. After Han Li and the others disappeared, the faint traces of black qi and silver light left in the side hall quickly dispersed, soon vanishing completely. At that moment, the fluorescence on the silver womb stones rapidly weakened. After a few breaths, it disappeared entirely. With a soft rumble, the light emitted by the silver womb stones returned to normal. The spatial restriction began operating again, exactly as it had before. Less than 3 breaths after the spatial restrictions were restored, a blur of a figure appeared on the second floor of the Great Hall. Guemu materialized out of thin air. He was just about to head for the 3rd floor when his brows suddenly drew together. He glanced toward the side hall on his left, a flicker of doubt passing through his eyes. A moment later, however, he shook his head, withdrew his gaze, and with a sway of his body stepped into the passage leading to the 3rd floor. At the same time, in a secluded alley somewhere in the city, a hazy flash of light swept by, and Han Li and the others emerged from it. The instant he appeared, Han Li could not help frowning, a trace of discomfort surfacing on his face. Only a wall apart, yet the difference is this great? The air in the Luosheng district is foul enough, but the baleful aura here is far denser than before, Fox 3 said, wrinkling his nose. Not only that, the temperature in the Luosheng district also seems much higher than it was earlier, Shi Chuankong added. Fellow Taoist Bailey, does the reincarnation region have any information on the situation inside Azura City? Han Li asked Bailey Yen. The Grey Realm is unlike the Immortal Realm. The barriers between its various regions are deep, and information is relatively blocked. The Nine Nether region is also extremely xenophobic by nature, so even less news makes its way out, Bailey Yen replied, shaking his head. In any case, let us head toward the boundary first. Once we get past this one last obstacle, we'll be able to enter the soul-washing district, Han Li said after a moment of thought. The layout of the Luosheng district is rather strange. There are quite a few peculiar ring-shaped structures here, but they aren't marked on the map, and I don't know what they are used for. If we head straight for the boundary, we'll have to pass by them along the way, Mo Guang said. We can't worry about that now. Avoid them as carefully as we can and get through as quickly as possible, Han Li said. With that, the group followed Mo Guang's lead and made their way toward the boundary. Along the way, the formations of nether slaves grew increasingly dense. In many fortress-like buildings, they could see cultivators whose cultivation was comparable to mid-stage true immortals. The defenses here were actually even tighter than those in the 100 Treasures district. After spending quite some effort, Han Li and the others finally arrived near the border adjoining the soul-washing district. Stop! We cannot go any farther, Mo Guang suddenly called out just as they were preparing to use Fox 3's methods once more to conceal their traces and approach. What is it? Han Li and the others halted abruptly, first tensing, then asking. Look over there, Mo Guang said, pointing ahead. Han Li focused his gaze in that direction, and his brows immediately knitted together. On the ground near the city wall ahead, a scarlet eyeball as large as a watermelon was embedded in the earth. Farther on, at regular intervals, identical eyeballs could be seen set into the ground. Even more chilling was the fact that the distant black city wall was densely covered with countless scarlet eyeballs. This is bad. There are actually so many Azura ghost eyes. Bailey Yen sighed. Azura ghost eyes? Are they troublesome? Fox 3 asked, puzzled. They are strange eyes taken from great Azura demons. Each such creature is born with 3,600 eyes and can see through all manner of illusions and transformations. Your illusion arts would probably have nowhere to hide before them, Bailey Yen said, shaking his head. In that case, we have no chance of approaching the wall silently, much less using spatial laws to pass through it, Shi Chuankong said with a frown. No sooner had he spoken than the Azura ghost eye closest to them suddenly spun and looked in their direction. Han Li and the others immediately fell silent, restrained their auras and withdrew. After finding another quiet place to hide, Han Li opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, a thunderous boom suddenly rang out from nearby. The group thought their tracks had been exposed and were all startled. They hurriedly looked around. Over there, Bailey Yen pointed in a certain direction ahead, his expression strange. Han Li followed his finger and saw that the place was one of the nameless ring-shaped structures Mo Guang had mentioned. Above it, a pitch-black mushroom-shaped cloud was rising into the air, lingering without dispersing for a long while. Fellow Taoist Mo Guang and I will go over and investigate. The rest of you conceal yourselves and wait here for a while, Han Li said after frowning in silence for a moment. I'll go with you. There seems to be something unusual over there, Bailey Yen said quietly. Very well. Fox 3 and fellow Taoist sure, wait here for now, Han Li said after a brief hesitation, then nodded. Be careful, Shi Chuankong said, his eyes narrowing slightly. Han Li and the other two flashed out. In the alleys, their bodies left behind blurred afterimages as they avoided the surrounding watchtowers. Before long, they arrived outside the high wall of the ring-shaped structure. Only when they got close did Han Li realize that these ring-shaped structures were much larger than they had appeared from afar. The walls were engraved with complicated runes, but fortunately they were all arrays used to reinforce the walls and had no warning function. The three concealed themselves and slipped into the structure. Inside they found a spacious area. At its center was a large black plaza, scattered with black boulders several zhang tall. The boulders were riddled with holes and badly damaged. The one blocking the three of them was still relatively intact, but even it had a chunk the size of a human head blasted off. Wisps of white smoke were still rising from the broken surface. While the three were still wondering what had happened, rumbling suddenly sounded from the ground at the far end of the plaza. The earth split open, revealing what seemed to be an underground passage. Immediately afterward, several figures slowly climbed up from below and entered the plaza. They were rather short, only about half the height of an ordinary human. Their upper bodies were bare, revealing dark bluish-black skin without scales. Their faces were ugly, with pointed ears, protruding fangs, and bald heads, except for a tuft of black hair growing at the center. Though squat and stocky, their muscles were extremely bulging, and their arms were unusually thick. Each arm was bound with ring after ring of greenish bronze bands, making them look rather fierce. Han Li frowned slightly. He felt that these foreign beings looked somewhat familiar, as if he had once read descriptions of a similar race in ancient texts, but for the moment he could not recall them clearly. What a strong aura of karmic fire! Bailey Yen suddenly muttered in a low voice as he looked at the opening in the ground. What? Han Li's attention had been on the squat foreign beings, and he had not heard him clearly. At that moment, the leader of the squat beings, who had the most bronze bands on his arms, 5 in total, swept his gaze over the entire plaza. His face was full of anger as he roared at the others behind him. This power is far too poor. It is useless. How could the lords of the Nine Nether clan ever approve of this? Go, bring me the one with the greatest amount. As soon as he finished speaking, one of the squat clansmen behind him immediately stepped forward in fear and trembling, holding a black sphere shaped like a sweet potato. Elder, please return underground to take shelter, the clansman said after taking 2 steps. He stopped and looked back at the leader. The leader's expression darkened. He turned and walked down the passage toward the underground chamber, and the others hurriedly followed. Seeing this, Han Li and his companions frowned slightly and looked at the remaining clansmen in puzzlement. The clansman silently chanted for a while, then suddenly raised his hand and pressed something on the sweet potato in his grasp before throwing it toward the center of the plaza. When Han Li saw a glowing pattern suddenly appear across its surface, he knew something was wrong. He hurriedly waved a hand, and a dark green turtleshell-shaped shield appeared in front of him. In the next instant, a deafening explosion erupted. A massive mass of black flame burst out from the black sphere. It first trembled and contracted sharply, then suddenly expanded, transforming into a sea of black fire that surged in every direction. The squat foreigner who had released the sphere tried to run back into the underground passage, but just as he reached the entrance, he was swallowed by the rolling black flames. His entire body instantly melted into a puddle of liquid that spread across the ground. The surfaces of the great black stones in the plaza were also rapidly corroded by the black flames, turning into magma-like black liquid that slowly streamed downward as they melted. The black boulder in front of Han Li and the others was no exception. Before long, it had flowed all over the ground under the burning of the black flames. The turtleshell light shield before the three held firmly against the flames, but it too hissed as clouds of smoke rose from it. "Go," Han Li said in a low voice, his brows tightly locked. As soon as he spoke, the three withdrew and leaped over the high wall. Inside the plaza, there were no black stones left. Only black flames surged violently against the surrounding walls, producing continuous rumbling sounds. Another black mushroom cloud rose into the sky, this one several times larger than the previous one. At the same time, the various runes engraved on the plaza and surrounding walls began to glow with black light. Strange fluctuations emanated from them, clashing with the black flames and gradually wearing away their momentum until they were completely exhausted. Han Li and the other two returned to the hiding place where Shi Chuankong and Fox 3 were waiting. Fox 3 immediately asked, his face full of confusion. "What happened? Why was there such a huge commotion? We thought you had been exposed and were just about to go look for you. That ring-shaped structure is a training ground. It seems to be specially used to test magical treasures of the Grey Realm," Han Li said with a wave of his hand. "Then that thing just now?" Shi Chuankong asked with a frown. "If I'm not mistaken, it was an explosive magical treasure made from karmic fire. Its instantaneous power is not weak and could pose a considerable threat even to ordinary true immortal cultivators," Mo Guang said, his eyes narrowing slightly. "In that case, those squat foreign beings should be the legendary Wajing clan, who are extremely skilled at artifact refinement," Han Li said thoughtfully. "The Wajing clan? According to the ancient records I saw before, weren't they wiped out thousands of years ago?" Shi Chuankong suddenly recalled something and cried out in surprise. "It seems the extermination was false. The truth is probably that the 9 Nether clans secretly kept them hidden to refine magical treasures for themselves," Han Li said, shaking his head. "If that is so, then that rumor must be true," Bailey Yen suddenly said, his eyes flashing. "What rumor?" Fox 3 hurriedly asked. "Before coming here, I specifically looked into information about the 9 Nether clan. One rumor in particular caught my attention. It is said that inside Azura City, there is a naturally formed pit of karmic fire. Every member of the 9 Nether clan, from the moment of birth, must be placed into this karmic fire pit to undergo a baptism. That is what they call soul washing," Bailey Yen said slowly. "They put newborn infants into karmic fire. How is that possible?" Shi Chuankong exclaimed in shock. "Cultivators of the Grey Realm rely on baleful aura as the foundation of their existence, so their tolerance for karmic fire is far beyond ours. Besides, they do not directly throw infants into the karmic fire. They make them live near it. Only when they reach 12 years old are they truly sent into the karmic fire to undergo soul washing. Those who can endure it and survive are qualified to become true members of the 9 Nether clan," Bailey Yen explained. "No wonder there are so few members of the 9 Nether clan, and so many Nether slaves instead," Fox 3 said thoughtfully. "Just now inside that courtyard, I sensed an extremely powerful aura of karmic fire. I suspect the karmic fire pit is beneath that courtyard," Bailey Yen said after a moment of thought. "If the rumor is true, then the karmic fire pit should be in the soul washing district. How could it be in the Luosheng district?" Shi Chuankong asked, puzzled. "That is not necessarily strange. We know nothing about the size or shape of the karmic fire pit. Perhaps it naturally runs through both the soul-washing and Luosheng districts, Mo Guang said with a smile. It is also possible that the Nine Nether clan deliberately dug fire channels to draw karmic fire into the Luosheng district in order to refine karmic fire magical treasures. In any case, it seems we may have to go underground and investigate, Han Li suddenly said. Fellow Taoist Li, are you thinking of using the karmic fire pit to sneak into the soul-washing district? Bailey Yin asked, raising an eyebrow. Exactly. Since traveling above ground is highly likely to alert a great encompassment existence, we might as well go underground and try our luck, Han Li said with a nod. I have long heard that karmic fire is extremely dangerous. We are not members of the Nine Nether clan. Are we truly going to pass through it with our bodies? Shi Chuankong asked worriedly. He was especially concerned about baleful aura invading the body, and seeing karmic fire, the manifestation of such aura, naturally made him even more fearful. Fellow Taoist Bailey should have the most experience in this matter. Do you know any way to avoid its effects? Han Li asked, turning to Bailey Yin. I assume all of you know that baleful aura and karmic fire share the same origin, differing only in how they manifest. In truth, even among karmic fires, those born of heaven and earth differ from those evolved within oneself. This underground karmic fire seems to possess burning power as well. It scorches the flesh from the outside and sears the soul from within. The body can still be protected with magical treasures, but there are far fewer methods that can protect the soul. For that, one must mostly rely on the strength of one's own soul to resist by force, Bailey Yin said with a nod. So there is no way to avoid it. We can only endure it. Fox 3 sighed. Not necessarily. If one has a ranked soul-protecting immortal artifact, it may be possible to activate it. If all of us work together to drive it, perhaps we can keep our souls safe, Bailey Yin said, shaking his head. I do have such a treasure. I can take it out for everyone to use together, Han Li said after a brief pause. With that, he raised a finger and tapped the space between his brows. A white rune appeared there, accompanied by a powerful force of spiritual sense. It was the peak-guarding soul-suppressing talisman stored in his sea of consciousness. This power was extremely peculiar. It only covered a small area, yet it caused Fox 3 and the others to change expression. Fellow Taoist Li, with such powerful spiritual sense, could it be that you have already cultivated the spirit refinement technique to the 5th level? Bailey Yin asked, his expression complicated. That's right. Fellow Taoist Bailey, take a look and see whether this peak-guarding soul-suppressing talisman can serve as an immortal artifact to protect our souls, Han Li said with a nod. His spiritual sense was so powerful that everyone present had forgotten to inspect the talisman itself, their attention instead falling entirely on his spiritual sense. Only after his reminder did they awaken from their daze. This treasure is extraordinary to begin with, and with your own spiritual sense being powerful enough, there should not be much of a problem if everyone activates it together. The only uncertainty is what the underground conditions will be like, Bailey Yin said, looking at Han Li with some concern. I have a suggestion. Why don't we disguise ourselves as members of the Nine Nether clan, and enter the underground area that way? Fox 3 said, narrowing his eyes. That won't do. The aura of the Nine Nether clan is unique. How could we imitate them so easily? If we are exposed on the spot, wouldn't that be the same as throwing ourselves into the net? Shi Chuankong said with a frown, shaking his head. Ordinary disguises naturally won't work, but with this it may not be impossible, Fox 3 said with a chuckle. As he spoke, light flashed over his hand, and several slender foxtails with pure white fur appeared. Their fine hair stood upright and gleamed with a crystalline luster, looking like strands of jade silk and snowy down. However, the thick fox musk emanating from them was rather strong, causing everyone nearby to wrinkle their noses. Are those jade firmament foxtails? Shi Chuankong stared at them carefully for a moment, then suddenly cried out. Brother sure has good eyes. That's right, they are indeed jade firmament foxtails, and they were shed by a grand unity senior of my clan. Let me say this in advance. I am only lending them. Once this is over they must be returned, Fox 3 said with some pride. Jade firmament foxtails are not only secret treasures of illusion arts, they also carry an innate bewildering effect. If we have these, then what fellow Taoist Fox 3 suggested earlier can indeed be attempted, Bai Lian said with a faint smile. In that case, there is no time to lose. Let us act at once, Han Li concluded. Over the next while, Fox 3 distributed the Jade Firmament foxtails to everyone, then explained how to use them. The group endured the intense musk and transformed their appearances. Once the treasures were activated and their forms changed, the fox musk disappeared without a trace. Because Mo Guang and Bai Lian already possessed auras above the Grand Unity stage, the two of them transformed into true members of the Nine Nether clan. Han Li and the other two transformed into 3 Nether slaves, lowering their brows and following respectfully behind them. A short while later, the group no longer concealed themselves. They rose directly into the air and flew toward the ring-shaped structure from before. Inside the courtyard, several members of the Hua Jing clan were inspecting the traces left behind by the previous explosion. Their leader kept nodding, seemingly quite satisfied with the power this time. Seeing Han Li and the others descend from the sky and stop suspended 1 foot above the ground before them, the already short Hua Jing clansmen had no choice but to raise their heads to look up. They bowed respectfully and said, "We welcome the 2 lords." Bai Lian and Mo Guang merely nodded coldly. Neither of them said anything. Seeing this, the Hua Jing clansmen began to sweat profusely. For a moment, none of them dared to speak, and the plaza fell silent. Just as Bai Lian was about to speak, the leader of the Hua Jing clansmen took the initiative to confess. "Please forgive us, my lords. Those 2 thieves from the true Immortal Realm refused to cooperate for so long that the testing of the karmic fire Baleful Thunder was only completed today, and we have not yet been able to refine it on a large scale. But please rest assured, my lords. In at most 3 days we will be able to produce a batch. Its power will absolutely meet your requirements." Hearing this, Han Li and the others were all stirred inwardly. "Take us down for a look," Bai Lian ordered without changing expression. "Yes." The Hua Jing clansmen hurriedly responded and walked ahead to lead the way, while the remaining few followed behind Han Li and the others. The ground rumbled, and a passage leading below slowly extended open. A dense surge of karmic fire baleful aura immediately rushed out to meet them. Following the passage downward for several hundred zhang, they arrived in a massive underground hall. As soon as they entered, waves of scorching air rolled toward them, carrying dense baleful aura that covered the surroundings. Apart from Mo Guang and Bai Lian, the rest of the group found it extremely difficult to bear. Thinking that they had not even truly entered the karmic fire yet, and it was already this uncomfortable, even Han Li began to wonder whether his decision had been correct. Fortunately, after adapting for a while, the initial strange feeling of their souls being shaken by the baleful aura gradually receded. Although discomfort remained, it was no longer as unbearable as before. Inside the empty underground hall, dozens of armored and armed nether slaves hovered on both sides. When they saw Mo Guang and Bai Lian, the indifferent expressions on their faces did not change, but they all bowed to them. "Lead the way," the 2 ordered without so much as glancing at them. The Hua Jing clansmen immediately guided them through the hall and deeper inside. The farther they went, the clearer the rhythmic clanging of hammers became. After passing through a not too long passage, enormous underground halls began appearing on both sides. Within them, firelight flickered and figures moved in silhouette. Large numbers of Hua Jing clansmen were working hard to forge and refine magical treasures and weapons. Han Li observed quietly along the way and saw that every hall contained a huge furnace. Black flames churned inside them, releasing scorching waves of heat. What burned within was clearly extremely pure karmic fire. The group walked until they reached the entrance of a hall in the middle section. The Hua Jing guide stopped and said, "My lords, please look. The karmic fire baleful thunder is being refined with all haste." Mo Guang and Bai Lian entered first, and Han Li and the others followed close behind. This hall was several times larger than the previous ones they had seen. Many areas had been divided within it, and nearly 100 Hua Jing clansmen were scattered throughout, each bent over their own task. They seemed completely unaware of Han Li and the others' arrival. Not a single one stopped working. Only a true immortal level nether slave came forward and bowed to Mo Guang and Bai Lian. In the enormous furnace at the center of the hall, masses of black flame leaped ceaselessly. Beside it, Hua Jing clansmen armed from head to toe, even their faces covered with masks, held containers attached to extremely long handles and carefully scooped clumps of black karmic fire from within the furnace. At that moment there was a clang. One Wajing clansman accidentally knocked his container against the edge of the furnace, and the karmic fire inside spilled out, gathering into a line of flame that flowed toward Han Li and the others. Seeing this, the Wajing clansman's face filled with panic. He immediately bent down and rushed forward to collect the fire again. But the nether slave flicked his wrist, producing a long whip wreathed in black flame, and lashed it heavily across the clansman's face. There was a sharp crack. The mask on the Wajing clansman's face shattered at once, and a hideous black and bloody welt appeared across his face. Green smoke rose from his face, yet he did not dare utter a sound. He continued chasing after the spilled karmic fire. By then, the fleeing black flame had already spread to Emoguang's feet. Emoguang unhurriedly bent down, raised a finger, and lightly tugged at the black karmic fire. The patch of black flame seemed to grow sticky, and he gathered it into his hand in a single motion. He casually toyed with it for a moment, then flicked his hand and tossed it back into the great furnace. The nether slave was first startled by the sight. Then he bowed to Emoguang in apology, before waving the whip again and directly wrapping it around the neck of the Wajing clansman who had made the mistake. The Wajing clansman was already ashen-faced. When the whip tightened, pain immediately appeared on his face, and he struggled desperately. The Wajing clansman who had led Han Li and the others down saw this. Though his eyes were filled with unbearable pity, he still stood aside with a sorrowful expression and dared not plead a single word. "Enough. Hurry and bring over the finished products," Bailey Yen said casually with a wave of his hand. The nether slave's indifferent expression did not change, but he withdrew the whip from the Wajing clansman's neck. The Wajing clansman, as though granted amnesty, hurriedly knelt and kowtowed, thanking them repeatedly. The guide also hastened to bring over the dozen or so completed karmic fire baleful thunder spheres. Bailey Yen picked one up and examined it briefly. A trace of doubt flashed deep in his eyes, and he sent a voice transmission to Han Li. "There seems to be some kind of fire attribute law power inside this baleful thunder. It may have something to do with the two people from the Immortal Realm they mentioned earlier. Perhaps the reason this baleful thunder is so powerful is precisely because it combines two opposing and extreme fire powers. Store these away first," Han Li replied by voice transmission. "Should we go see those two prisoners?" Bailey Yen asked through voice transmission. "Let us first go to the karmic fire pit and see whether we can reach the soul-washing district. We shouldn't create unnecessary complications," Han Li replied after a moment of thought. "Since we are already here, should we also inspect the karmic fire pit?" Bailey Yen put away all dozen or so karmic fire baleful thunder spheres with a flip of his hand and pretended to speak to Emoguang. "Indeed. Since we have come this far, we might as well go there," Emoguang said with a nod. "My lords, this way," the nether slave immediately said, floating over. With that, he led Emoguang and the others out of the hall and continued down the passage. As they left the hall, Han Li glanced back at the Wajing clansman still toiling bitterly. He saw a flash of resentment in the eyes of the guide from earlier, but when the man noticed Han Li looking at him, he instantly became terrified. Han Li's expression did not change. He turned and left. The Wajing clansman let out a long breath of relief, then stood frozen in place, confusion seeming to fill his eyes. The passage continued forward. After traveling for roughly a dozen li, they finally arrived in an enormous underground cavern. Han Li and the others looked ahead and saw a vast black fire pool before them, its area as large as an ordinary lake. Black flames rolled within it, and baleful aura steamed upward, making it difficult to breathe. The passage beneath their feet gradually narrowed after entering the space above the fire pool, becoming a broken bridge several zhang wide that extended all the way to the center of the pool. On the opposite bank of the fire pool was a pitch-black rock wall. Still visible on the wall was a huge cavern several dozen zhang high. The raging karmic fire flowed out from within that cavern and poured down into the black fire pool below. Fellow Taoist Li, it is just as you guessed. The karmic fire in the Luoxing district was drawn here from the soul-washing district, Shichuankong said by voice transmission. Don't be too happy yet. We have to hurry. The denser the baleful aura, the faster the spiritual energy within the jade firmament foxtails is consumed. Before long we'll revert to our true forms, Fox 3 suddenly transmitted. Hanli was just about to reply when his gaze abruptly sharpened. On the broken bridge ahead stood more than a dozen armored nether slaves, all gripping weapons. Their expressions were indifferent as they stood facing one another. None of them paid any attention to this side, as though they had not seen the group at all. Beneath the end of the broken bridge hung a square black iron cage, swaying over the karmic fire as it was constantly licked by flames and corroded by baleful aura. Inside the cage were two figures, each leaning against a corner, their hair disheveled and their bodies weak and dispirited. Hanli fixed his eyes on them. The person on the left side of the cage was rather tall, with fiery red hair hanging in a mess over his face. Only a rough, dark bluish-black nose protruded, like the sharp horn of a rhinoceros. The person leaning in the opposite corner had snow-white hair. His face was covered with wounds and bloodstains, making his features almost impossible to discern. Yet Hanli recognized him at a glance. It was none other than Immortal Venerable Heat Flame. Hanli's heart stirred, but he made no unnecessary movement. Those two, they seemed to be fellow Taoists Qi Rong and Heat Flame? Fox 3 had clearly recognized them as well, and could not help transmitting. It is them. Seems their luck was worse than ours. They actually fell into the hands of the Nine Nether clan. Shichuankong replied in surprise. What acquaintances of yours? Should we rescue them? Bailey Yen asked in confusion, not knowing the two. Hanli's brows drew tightly together. His gaze lingered over Immortal Venerable Heat Flame for a moment before he replied by voice transmission. There are restrictions placed on them. They probably cannot be freed quickly. Let us find the baleful cleansing pool first. We can deal with rescuing them after we return. Do we act now? Emoguang asked. Act, Hanli transmitted. At that command, Emoguang, who stood at the very front, grinned. He raised a hand and clawed outward. Rolling black mist surged out from his robes like 5 ferocious black dragons, pouncing forward and coiling around the nether slave guide in a strangling formation. My lord, why are you? Before the latter could finish speaking, the thick baleful aura had already swallowed him. At the same time, great waves of pitch-black mist surged out and directly flooded the entire broken bridge. The dozen or so nether slaves on the bridge had no time to react before they were engulfed by the sudden baleful aura. Bailey Yan's figure had already flashed and vanished into the baleful aura. Within the chaos, only muffled thuds rang out one after another. Emoguang raised his large hand and lifted the nether slave guide's body into the air. After only a few breaths, the rolling baleful aura swept back and returned to Emoguang. The nether slave, meanwhile, had become as shriveled as if all his blood had been drained away and fell downward like skin wrapped around bones. The karmic fire below churned violently and instantly swallowed the nether slave's corpse. On the broken bridge, Bailey Yen was kicking the corpses of the dozen or so nether slaves one by one into the karmic fire pit. After cleaning everything up, the group no longer hovered in the air. They landed on solid ground, removed the jade firmament foxtails from their bodies, and handed them back to Fox 3. Let's go, Hanli said after glancing around. The others looked back once toward the passage, then quickly walked onto the broken bridge and headed toward its end. When they passed the place where the square iron cage hung, Hanli hesitated only slightly and glanced down before continuing onward. Inside the iron cage, Immortal Venerable Heat Flame seemed completely unaware of what had happened above. He showed no reaction at all. Beneath his messy hair, his eyes had become dim and gray, without the slightest trace of their former brilliance. You are on the same side as this senior brother of mine, aren't you? How is it that you won't even save him? Qi Rong in the opposite corner suddenly raised his head and laughed strangely. Fox 3's brows furrowed at the words and his steps slowed. Time is tight. We'll talk about it when we return, Shichuankong said quietly as he passed beside him. Hearing this, Fox 3 hurried to catch up. When they arrived at the end of the broken bridge, the heat waves from the karmic fire became even more scorching, and the surging baleful aura grew increasingly violent. Even Hanli found it somewhat difficult to endure. Shichuankong and Fox 3 felt their heads beginning to grow heavy, while waves of vicious hostility began roiling within their hearts. Hanli's eyes narrowed. He silently activated the spirit refinement technique, then raised a hand and tapped the space between his brows. A white light immediately lit up. After the words of the peak-guarding soul-suppressing talisman appeared, a powerful force of spiritual sense spread outward. Quickly, pour your spiritual sense into the talisman and protect your bodies. We set out now, Hanli said. Hearing this, the others each used their own methods to guard themselves. Bailey Yin waved a hand, and a black suit of armor that seemed to have been forged from dragon scales appeared over his body. Crimson scale patterns covered it, and runes lit up over both the chest and back. It was clearly a rare ranked immortal artifact. Fox 3 opened his mouth and spat out a dark green pearl. It rolled forth and was embedded into the crown on his head. Both items were magical treasures. Once joined together, they immediately released dazzling green light that enveloped his entire body, even turning his skin the color of jade. On the other side, Shi Chuankong summoned his silver pipa and raised a finger to press lightly against its strings. Waves of invisible force surged out from within it, forming a spatial barrier around his body. Mo Guang glanced at the karmic fire ahead and curled his lip. He did nothing at all. With a thought from Hanli, patches of golden scales rose across his body, and a dark green mystic turtle armor appeared over him. Seeing this, the others all tightened their focus and began releasing their spiritual sense into the peak-guarding soul-suppressing talisman. As layer upon layer of spiritual sense poured in, the rune between Hanli's brows grew increasingly clear. The phantom of a snowy peak more than 10 zhang tall emerged, enveloping them all within it. Fox 3 and Shi Chuankong relaxed their brows slightly. The discomfort they had felt earlier vanished like ice melting into snow. Do not relax in the slightest. Karmic fire burning the body is not the same as baleful aura invading the flesh. If your mind falters, there will be trouble, Hanli warned, sensing that the two of them had loosened their guard somewhat. Shi Chuankong and Fox 3 hurriedly nodded, not daring to let their attention wander again. Go! At Hanli's command, the group rose together, leaped from the broken bridge, and flew straight toward the opening of the karmic fire passage. But the moment they left the bridge, the flames within the karmic fire ahead suddenly flickered wildly, and waves of rumbling rang out. This is bad. There are restrictions beneath the fire pool, Hanli cried. As soon as his voice fell, the karmic fire below began to boil. Black fireballs the size of millstones shot upward one after another, smashing toward Hanli and the others, while smoke and miasma spread through the air, making their breathing grow hurried. Fellow Taoist Mo Guang. Hanli's eyes flashed as he shouted. Mo Guang said nothing. With a sharp sweep of his sleeve, billowing black mist poured from his body as if it had substance, transforming into 8 black fog dragons. They danced up and down like octopus tentacles, lashing again and again at the millstones of karmic fire shooting toward them. Boom after boom rang out. Great sprays of black sparks burst apart. Wisps of flame even wound their way up along the black fog dragons, rushing straight toward Mo Guang. Mo Guang's brows drew together, as though he were somewhat surprised. He shook both sleeves violently, and a soundless aura swept outward at once, scattering the black flames of karmic fire. The scattered sparks of karmic fire that splashed onto Fox 3's body flared briefly like fireworks, only to be fiercely repelled by the jade-green glow on his outer surface. He felt a dense baleful aura pierce into his body, and his sea of consciousness seemed to suffer a heavy blow, buzzing violently. Yet under the protection of the Yufeng spirit-calming talisman, he merely felt momentarily dazed, and no fierce, savage impulse arose within him. But before one wave had subsided, another rose. The millstones of karmic fire continued to shoot through the air, while the fire pool below grew increasingly restless. Rolling black flames surged skyward, forming a black wall of fire that lunged toward them. Seeing this, Shi Chuankong pressed his thumb against the strings of his pipa, and tore sharply across them. A violent sound wave, accompanied by powerful spatial force, surged forward like a massive warship charging headlong through the sea. It slammed into the towering wall of karmic fire and forcibly tore open a gap several zhang high. Shi Chuankong kept the string pulled tight, not daring to relax in the slightest. The sound wave continued without pause, desperately maintaining the opening. Hurry! I can't hold it for long, Shi Chuankong called through clenched teeth. Hanli hesitated no longer. A layer of golden light spread out around him, forming a time-spirit domain that enveloped the surrounding space, and he shot forward at high speed. Yet the moment the golden domain touched the karmic fire, dense streams of baleful aura immediately seeped in from all directions, entering Han Li's body through the domain itself. Han Li gave a muffled groan. Within his sea of consciousness, towering waves rose violently, and an overwhelmingly fierce, murderous sensation erupted, almost swallowing him in an instant. Fortunately, he had already been circulating the spirit refinement art at full strength in advance, so the sudden eruption of baleful aura did not seize control of his mind. Immediately afterward, the runes on the white snow peak standing within his sea of consciousness shone brightly. Waves of invisible force rippled outward, gradually suppressing the surging waves within his mind. At the same time, under the burning of the karmic fire, the radiance of Han Li's spirit domain grew increasingly dim. His brows knitted tightly. With a low shout and a sweep of his sleeve, several azure chains of light shot out at once, wrapping around Bailey Yen and the others. The mantra-treasured wheel within his body reversed at high speed, and his figure suddenly surged forward, carrying everyone through the gap in the wall of fire in a single burst. The instant they leaped out, Shi Chuankong could no longer endure. Covered in cold sweat, he withdrew the finger hooked around the string, its pad already stained with blood. Without the support of the sound wave, the black wall of fire closed again, its flames churning violently. By then, however, the group had already swept past. They were less than 10 zhang from the karmic fire passage leading to the soul-washing district. At last, everyone inwardly breathed a sigh of relief and was about to charge into the passage in one go when a sudden change occurred. At the entrance of the passage, a circle of runic formation patterns abruptly lit up. The black karmic fire that had originally been flowing out slowly suddenly surged forth like a bursting flood. Rolling karmic fire rushed at them head-on. The distance was far too short, and Han Li and the others were caught completely off guard. They were scattered at once, tumbling down toward the fire pool below. The black flames in the pool surged up as well, instantly swallowing them. The moment Han Li fell into the karmic fire, he immediately sensed that the soul connections he had established with the others through the Yufeng spirit calming talismans had been severed. Before he could examine the matter, black karmic fire surged in from every direction, clinging to his dark green armor and burning fiercely. Wave after wave of intense baleful aura entered his body along with rolling heat. The dark green armor was unable to block it. Han Li immediately felt his entire body tighten, as though layers of chains had wrapped around him. Even the baleful aura entrenched within his immortal acupoints began to stir restlessly. Fortunately, his soul remained tightly guarded and was not disturbed by the baleful aura, so he did not fall into madness. Han Li gave a soft shout. Golden light flashed behind him, and the mantra-treasured wheel whistled into being, releasing waves of golden radiance. Wherever the light reached, the surging, wavering black karmic fire seemed to freeze in place and almost stopped moving. Yet the heat and baleful aura radiating from it did not weaken in the slightest. Han Li frowned deeply. His body shot upward, following the mantra-treasured wheel out of the fire pool. However, before he could steady himself, a darkness suddenly pressed down above his head like a mass of black clouds. A sheet of black light descended heavily. When he looked up, he saw a pitch-black square seal the size of a millstone dropping toward him. It was almost unaffected by the laws of time. On its base, the 4 words meaning all things encompassed were carved in relief, glowing as red as blood. Within them seemed to be a soul-seizing power that left him unable to break free. Han Li was shocked, but he had no time to determine what had happened. He raised his fist and struck upward at the black seal. A huge azure fist shadow rushed skyward, swelling in an instant until it was as large as a house, then slammed heavily into the black seal. A thunderous boom rang out. The azure fist shadow could barely hold for an instant before shattering into countless fragments. An azure blast wave spread in all directions, but the black square seal continued pressing straight down. Han Li roared. The muscles across his body swelled violently as he transformed directly into a giant mountain ape over 10 zhang tall. Raising both arms, he pushed upward against the descending black seal. There was a dull, heavy boom. The black square seal, which had seemed only the size of a millstone, abruptly expanded several times over and landed in Han Li's hands. Han Li groaned. He felt as though it weighed as much as 10,000 mountains. Even with his current physical strength, he found it difficult to resist. He was forced downward and fell back into the fire pool. Only then did he understand. It was not that the seal was unaffected by the laws of time. Rather, the power contained within it was simply too terrifying. To a certain extent, it could already influence space, which was why it seemed to strike him without obstruction. Had the laws of time not cushioned the blow, the black seal would likely have been even faster, and the power it contained even more terrifying. Tisk tsk. The laws of time, true spirit bloodline. Your methods are indeed not weak. No wonder you dared sneak into the Luosheng district. Speak. Who are you people? From the reincarnation domain? Or from the heavenly court? At that moment a strange laugh sounded, followed by a hoarse voice. Hanli braced the enormous black seal with both hands. Purple gold scales covered his body as he did his utmost to resist the erosion of the karmic fire. He followed the sound with his gaze. At the head of the broken bridge, hovering a foot above the ground, stood a figure. He wore a long black robe gleaming with oily black light, and on his head was a strange tall crown. His face was similarly deathly pale, while his eyes were filled with an extremely dense gray-white hue, far deeper than Mou's had been years ago. His features were somewhat feminine, almost woman-like. He could not exactly be called handsome, but unlike the 9 Nether clan members Hanli had seen before, he did not look cold and indifferent. Instead, a faint smile hung on his face, sending a chill through Hanli's heart. What frightened Hanli most was the depth of this person's cultivation, as vast as the sea. He was unmistakably a great encompassing cultivator. Behind him stood 2 strange horned beings, both with bull-like horns growing from their heads. Their expressions were indifferent and blank. The 2 horned beings seemed to be of the same race as those Hanli had seen earlier in Puppet Forging Fortress. The difference was that the 2 before him were clearly completed products. White bone spikes jutted outward from their arms and shoulders, and loops of black chains with a metallic sheen were wrapped around their hands. At the other end of the chains, a figure was bound up like a rice dumpling. Hanli looked closely and found that it was actually Fox 3. His eyes were shut, and it was impossible to tell whether he was alive or dead. In the void on the other side, 7 or 8 armored nether slaves likewise held black chains in their hands, surrounding Shi Chuankong, who still held his silver pipa. These armored nether slaves were also somewhat different from those Hanli had seen before. The scales beneath their eyelids were not gray-white but pitch black. A huge hollow opened in their chests, and inside it seemed as though a fire pit had been embedded, burning with black karmic fire. All the black chains in their hands had been cast out. Blazing karmic fire wound around them as they came from every direction, forming a spherical cage around Shi Chuankong. A ringing note sounded. Shi Chuankong plucked the strings sharply. A layer of silver light rippled outward and transformed into a spatial barrier, pushing the black chains apart. Seeing this, 2 of the armored nether slaves drifted forward and charged straight at the spherical cage. Within the fire pits in their chests, circles of strange inscriptions lit up. The 2 masses of pitch-black karmic fire first contracted, then suddenly exploded. A tremendous force burst forth. The spatial barrier Shi Chuankong had struggled to maintain was immediately blasted apart. Not far away, Bailey Yan's arms had already turned pitch black. Uneven black scales jutted from them like thorny barbs, and his hands had transformed into 2 massive dragon claws. Wisps of black flame wound around them as well, though the aura they emitted was entirely different from the fire pool below. Clearly, forced into a corner, he had once again released the karmic fire he had worked so hard to suppress. Unlike Shi Chuankong, he had only one opponent. But when Hanli saw that person's face clearly, his heart was shaken to the extreme. Because that person was none other than Su Lu. The current Su Lu no longer had the slightest trace of an immortal aura. The armor he had once worn had disappeared, leaving his upper body bare. His body was covered in shocking stitched wounds. His chest had also been hollowed open, and inside it was embedded something resembling a hollow iron sphere. It was covered in dense runes, and faint karmic fire rose from it. Across his shoulders and arms, 2 pitch-black chains had been threaded as if by needle and thread. They pierced straight through both of his arms and extended out from his palms. At the ends of the chains were attached a black double-bladed axe and a spiked meteor hammer. Hanli's pupils contracted sharply at the sight. He noticed that Sulu's eyes had lost their former light and had likewise turned gray-white. His entire body radiated baleful energy, making him look almost like a gray immortal. Judging by your reaction, it seems you know this great general under my command? The great encompassing cultivator of the Nine Nether clan narrowed his eyes and glanced at the giant ape Hanli had transformed into before speaking slowly. What did you do to him? Hanli asked, brows tightly furrowed. So you do know each other. Speaking of which, he wasn't as lucky as those two fellows under the bridge. When he arrived here, he had already been torn apart by spatial force. I merely picked up a corpse and made a few slight modifications. He is rather lonely now, you know. I was just thinking of finding him a companion. The great encompassing cultivator spread his hands with a helpless expression. So he really fell. Hanli froze slightly and murmured to himself. In truth, there is no need for you to grieve, because very soon you will become just like him and serve under me. How about it? When you think about it, isn't it a little exciting? The Nine Nether clan cultivator suddenly burst into somewhat deranged laughter. As soon as he finished speaking, a thunderous boom suddenly came from underground. The black karmic fire in the pool surged like a tide, suddenly rolling violently. Then an enormous wave of flame rose up, submerging more than half of Hanli's body. Hanli felt a baleful aura 100 times denser than before wrap around him. In that instant, despite the fact that he had forcibly stabilized his mind with the spirit refinement art, an almost uncontrollable impulse suddenly surged within him. It was as if countless wild horses had broken free in his heart and were galloping everywhere, battering his soul. An inexplicable scorching heat wrapped around his soul and began to burn it fiercely. Although he barely managed to preserve a trace of clarity and continued urging the spirit refinement art, alarm rose sharply within him. A mere golden immortal, yet your soul is so powerful. How interesting. I would like to see how long you can last. The Nine Nether clan cultivator clasped his hands behind his back and spoke with a trace of amusement. Hanli guarded his mind desperately while struggling to support the crushing pressure of the black giant seal. His face had turned deathly pale. Vein-like tendons bulged across the surface of his furry arms, and cracking sounds rang out from within his body. Yet his thoughts moved like lightning. His eyes swept around, and he suddenly saw two figures rushing out from beneath the pool on the other side. One of them was Emo Guang. However, Emo Guang's situation was likewise far from good, and he looked rather disheveled. He was being lifted out of the karmic fire pool by a young girl less than half his height, who had locked one hand around his throat. Yet there was still a trace of a smile on his face. It was unclear whether he had something to rely on, or was merely forcing himself to remain calm. Hanli swept his gaze over and saw only the girl's back. She wore a scarlet half-cape, looking strikingly different from the Nine Nether clan members whose tones were mostly gray-white and black. She stood out sharply. In the blink of an eye, just after the two had left the karmic fire pool, black light suddenly flashed from Emo Guang's body. His form blurred slightly, as though he meant to turn into black mist and scatter. But around the wrist of the girl's hand clutching his neck, a ring of dark red light patterns also lit up, releasing waves of extremely peculiar fluctuations that actually prevented him from becoming intangible. After hovering in midair, the girl made a stiff turn and descended directly toward the bridgehead. Emo Guang was dragged in her hand, but there was little fear on his face. He still wore an indifferent smile. The girl seemed deeply displeased with his expression, and her free hand swung over in a slap. There was a crisp crack. Emo Guang's head immediately tilted to one side, as though even his neck bone had been broken by the girl. Seeing this, the girl casually threw him to the ground. She formed a strange, obscure hand seal with both hands and struck it onto his forehead with a sharp smack. A wisp of green smoke rose, and a crimson character meaning sealed immediately appeared between Emo Guang's brows. One of the horned puppets standing behind the Nine Nether clan cultivator immediately stepped forward and waved a hand. The black chain wrapped around its arm shot out like a spirit snake. With a flash of black light, Emo Guang was bound as well. Many thanks for your assistance, Lady Yuluo, the great encompassing cultivator said to the girl, his eyes flickering slightly. Ingwa, the Luosheng district is under your guard. Yet intruders managed to break in this far. Impressive indeed, the girl said coldly, paying no attention to his thanks. Hearing this, Ingwa merely gave a few dry chuckles and did not refute her. Do you need me to deal with the rest as well? The girl named Yuluo asked mockingly, hands clasped behind her back as she turned around. The girl looked very similar to a human. Her skin was fair, and her features were quite delicate. Only at the center of her brow was a black scale shaped like a vertical eye, and beneath her eyelids were several crimson markings, giving her a distinctly exotic air. Hanli noticed that the girl's pupils were not gray-white but dark bluish-black, very similar to those of a human. Doubt immediately rose in his heart. Could it be that she was not from the Gray Realm? Why is a true spirit from the Immortal Realm involved as well? Yuluo paused slightly when she saw Hanli in giant ape form, seeming somewhat surprised as she raised a delicate brow. He is merely a human with some true spirit bloodline. There is no need to trouble you, Lady Yuluo, Ingwa said indifferently. The girl did not reply, appearing non-committal. You humans are quite interesting. You should give me plenty of amusement for a while. Ingwa no longer paid attention to the girl. His gaze turned back to Hanli as he spoke. With that, he raised a hand and waved it. Black light flashed across the black square seal that Hanli was desperately holding up. The blood-red glow from the seal's four engraved words flared brightly, and its weight surged once again, pressing downward with crushing force. Hanli gave a muffled groan. The mantra treasured will suddenly withdrew into his body and began reversing at full power. With great difficulty, he broke free from the strange force binding him beneath the square seal. He did not choose to retreat toward the entrance of the broken bridge. Instead, his direction abruptly changed, and he shot with all his strength toward the karmic fire passage. How impudent! Where do you think you're going? Ingwa shouted coldly and swept his sleeve. The bottom of the karmic fire pool shook violently. Then one pitch-black stone pillar after another surged upward, forming a cage-like barrier in front of Hanli. In his urgency, Hanli twisted his wrist. 9 azure bamboo cloud-swarm swords merged into one, and all the divine devilbane lightning stored within them surged out without reserve, slashing toward the front. Countless strands of golden lightning gathered together into an enormous golden bolt. Amid explosive crackling, it broke through layer upon layer of karmic fire obstruction, stirred up waves of sword storms, and struck heavily against the black stone pillars. A series of thunderous explosions rang out as the black stone pillars burst apart one after another. Hanli's figure did not pause in the slightest. He passed straight through the still raging blast waves and rushed toward the karmic fire passage, about to plunge into it. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. At that moment, a black shadow flashed past and appeared in front of him one step faster. It was Ingwa. He extended a palm that seemed slow yet was actually swift beyond belief. An endless suction force appeared in his palm, and he seized Hanli by the collar. With his other hand he held the black square seal from before and stamped it toward Hanli's forehead like lightning. By then it was already too late for Hanli to summon the mantra-treasured wheel again. His recent struggle had also consumed far too much energy. At that moment, he simply could not resist, and the seal was struck heavily against his forehead. He felt as though his entire body had been struck by electricity. A wave of numbness passed through him, and the circulation of immortal spiritual power throughout his body was sealed. His entire body lost all strength, leaving him completely unable to move. Ingwa grabbed him and turned back. On the other side, Shi Chuankong had also been exhausted and captured. Only Bailey Yen remained, locked in a fierce battle against Su Lu, who had become a Tai stage puppet. Yuluo, who had been silently watching, chose the perfect moment to suddenly launch a sneak attack. Bailey Yen had already been struggling to fend off attacks from all sides, and once the girl joined in, he naturally could no longer hold out. He too was captured. Hanli's heart sank to the bottom. Although he had already prepared himself for the worst, he had not expected that against a great encompassing opponent Mo Guang Fox 3, and Bailey Yen 3 Tai stage cultivators together with him and Shi Chuankong 2 peak golden immortals would be completely wiped out in less than 15 minutes. He was even more puzzled. Why had the great encompassing cultivator guarding the Luosheng district arrived so quickly? Even if they had triggered the fire pool restriction, he should not have been able to arrive so fast, unless they had already been noticed beforehand. Could their disguises have been seen through long ago? That did not seem likely. The Jade Heaven foxtail was genuine. Mo Guang himself possessed the body of a Tai Gray immortal, and because of the karmic fire troubling him, Bailey Yen could be considered half a Tai stage Gray immortal as well. The auras on both of them should have been sufficient to fool others. Otherwise, Han Li would not have had them impersonate members of the Nine Nether clan. Our earlier infiltration clearly had few flaws. How did you discover us? Han Li's entire body was numb, and even his tongue would barely obey him. Since you are being so honest, I will show rare kindness and tell you. Not all those on duty here are Nether slaves. One of them is my puppet, Ingwa said after glancing at him, then gestured with his chin toward a nearby area. We were still careless. Han Li fell silent and sighed inwardly. At that moment, Ingwa raised his left hand and struck a palm through the air toward the group. A bolt of black lightning shot out from his palm and exploded with a bang, transforming into countless black runes that drilled into Han Li and the others with astonishing speed. Han Li felt a needle-like stabbing pain in his lower abdomen, where his dantian lay. Shocked, he forced himself to endure it. Blue veins bulged on his forehead as he hurriedly inspected his dantian. Within his dantian, gray light now flickered. Threads of black lightning had appeared out of nowhere, enveloping his nascent soul. These black lightning threads emitted an inexplicable power of law. Once his nascent soul was confined by them, the immortal spiritual power in his body, which had already been circulating poorly, immediately froze completely as though sealed in ice. He could not use even the slightest bit. Not only that, the power of law spread outward, rapidly permeating every part of his body. Worst of all, Han Li's physical body had also become limp and weak, unable to exert much strength. His spiritual sense was likewise locked within his mind and could not spread out at all. Mo Guang and the others all changed expression, clearly suffering the same condition. Ingwa seemed quite satisfied with the changes on their faces. A pleased look appeared on his own as he slowly withdrew his hand. Ingwa, your baleful thunder law grows more mysterious by the day. Impressive. Yuluo, standing nearby, saw this and her eyes brightened slightly as she clapped in praise. It is merely the baleful thunder law. In the Grey Realm, no fewer than 10 people have cultivated this law to success. How could it compare to your innate law? A hidden trace of jealousy flashed through Ingwa's eyes, though he smiled as he spoke. Hearing this, Yuluo giggled. Her appearance could not originally be called peerlessly beautiful, but when she smiled, she exuded an astonishing charm, as if 100 flowers had bloomed at once. Ingwa's brows furrowed slightly. A sinister glint flashed through his eyes, but the smile remained on his face. Thank you for the praise, Ingwa. By the way, what do you intend to do with these people? Yuluo soon stopped laughing and asked seriously. A few clowns jumping about. With their tiny cultivation bases, they still dared sneak into Shura City. They must be plotting something. Naturally, I will capture them first and interrogate them properly to see what their true intentions are, Ingwa said, sweeping his gaze over Han Li and the others. These people have mixed identities. Humans, a demon, and even a Shuha clansman from our Grey Realm. It is indeed difficult to guess their purpose. They should be questioned carefully. Speaking of which, I am rather skilled at torture and interrogation. How about I help you question one of them? Yuluo smiled faintly and raised a jade-like finger, pointing at Han Li. On the ground, Han Li was slightly startled when he saw this. Hearing her words, the smile on Ingwa's face slowly vanished. He quietly looked at Yuluo without speaking. In that case, this humble girl shall show her poor skills. Yuluo raised a hand and waved it. A stream of dark red light flew from her sleeve and swept toward Han Li. But at that very moment, the void above Han Li flashed. A bolt of black lightning appeared and struck the dark red light. The dark red light immediately burst apart and scattered. Ingwa slowly lowered his raised arm. A strand of black lightning still flickered at his fingertip. What are you doing? Yuluo asked with a look of surprise. Yuluo, do not think that because the domain lord favors you, you may act recklessly. These people were captured in the Luosheng district. According to the rules, they are naturally mine to deal with. There is no need for you to interfere. Ingwa's expression abruptly changed as he spoke coldly. You speak too seriously, Ingwa. How would this humble girl dare interfere with you? Since you do not want my help, then forget it. However, Outsiders invading the Luosheng district is a major matter. It should be reported to the domain lord immediately, Yuluo said calmly, seemingly not angry in the slightest. The domain lord is currently presiding over the Three Domains Alliance conference. I can handle this small matter myself. Once I have the results of the interrogation, I will personally report to him, Ingwa said at once, his expression shifting slightly. That may be so, but since I have seen this matter, I should still inform the domain lord, lest Lord Ingwa become too busy and forget, Yuluo said with a faint smile. Yuluo, let us speak plainly. What exactly do you want? Ingwa stared fixedly at her. The anger on his face receded like a tide as he spoke slowly. These people are not weak, and the laws they cultivate are precious. They are rare goods worth keeping. Besides, I did lend a hand in capturing them just now. You should not think of swallowing all the benefits alone, Yuluo said with a chuckle. Say what you want, Ingwa said after his expression changed several times and he fell silent for a moment. You can keep the people, but their treasures belong to me, Yuluo said at once. Most of them come from the true Immortal Realm. In all of Shura City, you may indeed be the only one able to use the things on them. Fine. I agree, Ingwa said, raising his brows, then quickly nodded. Yuluo said no more. She raised a hand and waved it. A stream of dark red light shot out, sweeping swiftly over Han Li and the other four. Without the slightest courtesy, it took away all the storage treasures on the 5 of them, as well as the immortal artifacts that had fallen nearby. The 9 azure bamboo cloudswarm swords that Han Li had previously summoned had been used against Ingwa. But after his immortal spiritual power was sealed in a flash, the swords lost their support and fell to the ground. They were now taken by Yuluo as well. Seeing this, Han Li's face twitched. He gritted his teeth and lowered his head. Fine treasures. Yuluo looked at the pile of immortal artifacts floating before her, lingering especially on Shurchuankong's silver pipa, and the 9 azure bamboo cloudswarm swords. After praising them, she turned her hand over and put everything away. This matter is settled. This humble girl will take her leave now. She nodded to Ingwa, turned and flew into the distance. Her figure soon disappeared. Greedy stinking whore. Ingwa watched Yuluo leave, his face filling with an indescribable hatred as he spat the words through clenched teeth. Take them all to the nether prison, he said after taking a deep breath and suppressing the hatred in his eyes. He turned to glance at Han Li and the others, snorted coldly, then vanished from where he stood with a flicker. The 2 horned beings stepped forward, lifted Han Li and the others from the ground, and waved their hands to withdraw the chains binding them. However, they then took out a set of pitch-black shackles and fastened them onto all 5. The shackles only locked the upper halves of their bodies, leaving their lower halves free to move. But Han Li and the others were now powerless. They could barely stand, let alone escape. The 2 horned beings then escorted the 5 out of the circular structure. A beast cart was waiting ahead. Behind it was a cage several zhang in size, making it a prison cart. The 2 horned beings waved their hands and threw Han Li and the others into the cage, then drove the beast cart forward. On the prison cart, the 5 looked at one another in silence. The prison cart moved quite quickly. After a little less than half a day, it arrived before a black building somewhere in the Luosheng district. The building occupied a large area and was square in shape. Countless black beads were embedded in its walls, releasing specks of black light. They flickered like countless stars, dazzling to the eye. One of the horned beings reached out and pulled Han Li and the others from the prison cart one by one, throwing them heavily onto the ground. Whatever seal Ingwa had placed on them had not only sealed their immortal spiritual power, but also restricted their physical strength, making their bodies unusually fragile. Han Li's body had always been incredibly tough. Even weakened by the seal, it remained sturdy enough, so he did not feel much. Fox 3 and the others, however, could not help giving muffled groans after being thrown so heavily. At that moment, a large man in gray walked out of the black building. He was tall, with 3 enormous fleshy lumps growing on his forehead, making his features look rather ferocious. Black mist swirled beneath him. He was unmistakably a member of the 9 Nether clan. The aura on the gray-clothed man was also quite powerful, having reached the Tai stage. Behind him followed 2 gray-armored beings who appeared to be Nether slave guards. Both wore fierce expressions and held leather whips covered in barbs. Oh, true Immortal Realm cultivators. Where did you catch them? After coming closer, the gray-clothed man looked Han Li and the others over several times, then suddenly showed surprise. These are several outsiders personally captured by Lord Ingua. Lock them in the lowest level of the nether prison, one of the horned beings said. Personally captured by Lord Ingua. A trace of astonishment flashed across the gray-clothed man's face. Lord Ingua specifically named these people as useful to him and especially instructed that they be watched carefully. The horned being added. Since it is Lord Ingua's order, I know what to do, the gray-clothed man said solemnly. Then we leave them to you. The two horned beings glanced at Han Li and the others, gave the gray-clothed man one more instruction, then turned into two black shadows and shot into the distance. You 5 little whelps, get inside. The gray-clothed man looked Han Li and the others up and down with ill intent, gave a sinister laugh, and walked toward the black building ahead. Han Li and the others could only follow as ordered. The two gray-armored guards brought up the rear. The group soon entered the black building. The interior was quite spacious, with a stone platform half a zhang high in the center. 8 white stone pillars stood around the platform. Countless curved runes were engraved on the pillars, while the platform itself was covered in formation patterns, forming a black array. It was clearly a teleportation formation. Step up, the gray-clothed man said indifferently, taking the lead onto the stone platform. Han Li and the other 4 ascended the steps beside it. Bailey Yen, who was walking at the rear, lagged slightly. One of the guards beside him raised his arm, and the leather whip in his hand became a blur. Hurry up! With a sharp crack, the black whip lashed viciously across Bailey Yan's body. The flesh on Bailey Yan's back split open at once. He was sent flying and crashed heavily onto the stone platform. The gray-clothed man acted as if he had seen nothing. He formed a hand seal and pointed. The formation on the stone platform immediately blazed with black light and began humming. The figures of the group blurred, then vanished from the formation. Han Li's vision blurred. Countless scenes flashed rapidly past. Only after quite some time did his sight return to normal, and he found himself inside a dark hall. The baleful aura here was dense. A cold, sinister chill lingered in the air, seeping into Han Li and the others like needles. Even Han Li, whose body was the toughest among them, trembled slightly. Move already. What are you dawdling for? Seeing their reaction, the gray-clothed man gave a cold chuckle and walked out of the hall. Han Li and the others followed. Bailey Yen silently climbed up from the ground and trailed behind the group. After they left the hall, a long passage appeared ahead. On both sides of the passage were prison cells, though most of them were currently empty. The passage stretched forward as far as the eye could see. Who knew how many cells lay within? Shrill screams sounded from ahead from time to time, making one's scalp tingle. So this is the so-called nether prison? Han Li glanced at the nearby cages and suddenly spoke. The gray-clothed man's footsteps abruptly stopped. He turned and looked at Han Li, a fierce light flashing in his eyes as he slowly walked over. You still dare speak casually after arriving here? It seems you have not understood your situation, boy. The gray-clothed man flipped his hand, and a black leather whip covered in barbs appeared in his grasp. It was more than twice as large as the whips carried by the 2 guards earlier, and looked even more vicious. I merely asked a question. Could it be that people are not even allowed to speak in this nether prison? Han Li said calmly.